Uh, it was June 2011.
Hey, you guys we're back up. Just to let you know, we just came back up.
So you were in your
Oh,
early
I was 10. I was 10,
low
10 years ago. So I
40s?
was. I was 54.
Wow.
All right, so we
thought you
brought
were
it back up.
54 right now.
Everybody can see that now, right? All right, we're back up. Nice job.
Oh shit!
Nice.
Did I just? Oh man.
So some of the people,
Yeah. That's right. Yeah.
so some of the people, the screen was dark on, guys, but they could hear us, I guess. So we're back up. I think everybody can see us now. Ask us any questions. Say where you're from. Greg was just talking about new home sales and existing home sales. You want to jump back on that one, Greg?
I'll finish. I'll just finish up by saying that, uh, you know, one of the issues with both new and existing home sales was the lack of inventory. That's why sales pace was lower. Inventory is getting better, and that's why the sales pace is getting better. It's both of the items have at record high prices right now. So I mean, there is going to be an issue, quote unquote, on affordability, but with interest rates next to zero, I mean,
yeah,
it's less of an issue.
So let's bring up the poll that you did on LinkedIn. We're going to throw it up here and let me know what you were asking. It's still open right now, right?
Yeah, it's open for another 22 hours. It's open for another 22 hours. I mean, I'm going to say this is, maybe the fifth or sixth poll since you taught me how to put polls up on LinkedIn, Ash. And it's actually getting pretty interesting. We've got some really good following in terms of the number of responses. But I just took a look and I said, hey, we've been down 13 weeks. We're down 75-80% in price. I mean, what's everybody want to know? When's the market going to bottom out?
Right.
And so, I mean, I kind of tightened it up, and with this week, mid-September, or not until mid-October, November. I guess here's the most interesting thing that I see. Almost half of the participants don't think the market's going to bottom until October or November. So, I mean, my general rule with the polls now, as I go back and I look at them, it's kind of consistent with the whole idea is if you can figure out what everybody thinks, then you do the opposite. And on the prior polls, that's held true. And I think, Ash, you and I talked about, how you ask the question and then interpreting those answers is a little bit of the art in it.
Yeah,
but
because you have to be careful asking a question to get a leading answer, right? Which I think your polls don't. You want to leave it pretty open ended to make sure that these questions are,
right. Well,
there,
and that's where, as I fine tuned it, this one's very cut and dry. There's no nuance to this. It's very straightforward. The good news and the bad news is, so the good news is that based on the fact that 75% of people don't think the market's going to bottom until, either mid-September or not until October, November, it's probably going to bottom either sooner or later. So, and I guess given where we are, I'm going to say the odds are better that it's going to be sooner. The bad news that I have, and maybe everybody can be right to some degree, is that I don't expect the market to have a significant bounce. And the reason why is there's so much shadow inventory hanging over the market that even if the prices went up, $25, $30, $50, there's so much inventory that needs to continue to liquidate.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I mean, just for my thing is, I don't think the market can go up higher until everybody's taking losses on all their high-priced inventory, and I think there's still plenty of that out there.
Right. Well, and that's the logic for kind of, bottoming out, but then bouncing along the bottom for the next several months.
Yeah. Yeah. Matt, what's your thought on that?
I don't disagree with any of that. I mean, there is a lot of inventory that's high priced still. I mean, I'm still shipping inventory that I paid too much for just to get rid of it so I can buy cheaper inventory and replace it. And I'm crossing my fingers at some point that cheaper inventory will actually stay cheap.
Yeah.
But everything that you bought in the last 30 to 60 days that you thought was a good deal just got beat up, in the following several weeks by even more millwood and more wholesale wood being offered. I just go back to what I said at the beginning with mills curtailing because they lacked storage space and improvement on the retail side of things, and people finally addressing their actual inventory issues, and just taking their losses and moving on. These are all good things. Like, they seem like bad things because they're painful, but I'd rather we be realists and deal with reality than just hope and pray for better market conditions down the road that don't seem to be coming. Because the only way that you can get those better market conditions is change the reality on the ground. And until mills have less inventory to deal with, and until wholesalers and distributors have less inventory to deal with, and until Home Depot and Lowe's and Menards start taking more fiber and the treaters start coming back in and buying more of a normal assortment of products, and everybody feels comfortable running their business the way they always have, this isn't going to get better. So you have to do those things. You have to do the hard things to get to where the good things will occur again. And that's what we're doing right now.
Maybe I can ask you guys. So look, at both of you trade your own positions in a way, right? You are responsible and you kind of have autonomy to do what you think. Your companies trust you to do what you think you need to do. And they both of you do. What I've noticed over the history of being in this business, these guys and people that I've used to see, 10 of them that were making their own decisions, all decided to go for the safe money, the 401k and the pension, go to these big companies where it's not really their lumber anymore. It's a big company's lumber. How do decisions get made at these large buying companies now relative to, or I guess what I'm asking the question is, what's their thought process? What I see is, instead of averaging down, they just decide to not buy and just to keep selling stuff, right? And it's really accentuated in the last year as these companies grow so large, or 2 years. I mean, am I reading anything into that, Matt? It's interesting. It's like feast or famine at some of these places.
Well, they have to keep up with demand on the way up because they can't run out of material. Otherwise, they lose business to their competitors, and their customers are furious at them. And then when the ship stops, it's like turn around the Titanic. You just can't turn around fast enough. So they have to liquidate. And I don't blame them. I actually
agree.
I think they're doing the right thing for their company. I mean, if you've got a whole bunch of inventory that you paid $1,500 to $2,000 for on June 15th, and you're still getting it, you're going to get cars in all summer long with 4-digit costs in them, due to existing contracts, due to maybe you bought a little too much. I mean, who knows? But it's not really prudent to just ignore that inventory and hope that the market comes back up to rescue you, right? It doesn't matter if you're a retailer or if you're the smallest little independent wholesaler in the world. Your first loss is your best loss, and that is never truer than when you're talking about record high prices. You just need to flush that inventory out as fast as you can so you can at least start making, we're comfortable making decisions on lumber that starts with a 3 or a 4 or 5.
Yeah.
Because we've done it our whole lives. And that's no big deal. Like that's not stressful. That's manageable mentally and physically. It's manageable. When you're talking $1,500 lumber to $2,000 lumber, nobody can operate in our business very efficiently in those circumstances. I don't care how talented you are. Yeah, we aren't good at that, and we will never be good at that.
Greg, what's your thought on that? The reason I'm asking, I know people from months ago.
I just find it. Go ahead, Ash. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, we had people months ago that are saying, I've got to buy next week to keep this inventory, and all of a sudden they stop and they're like, now I'm not buying for a month and a half. Well, last week you said, watching your trailing averages, that you had to buy next week, and now you don't have to buy for a month and a half, right? It's a head scratcher to me. Is how people decide to make decisions when to buy it, not at these big companies.
I mean, we could, if we want to do the deconstruct on how we got here. We got here because there was a mania from late March until the middle. That we knew, quote unquote, was unsustainable. Anybody that had been in the industry, but everybody got caught up in it to some degree or another. And to your point, the level industry, I mean Matt was able to run out of wood. He ran out of wood at $1,500-$1,600. But if you're a big yard that's a major home builder, you can't run out of wood. I mean, they're having all sorts of problems because they're running out of all the other products. But
for sure,
they run out of wood. I told someone today the analogy that I have. The market today feels a lot in early May, opposite. In early May, I mean, it didn't matter what the price was. It didn't matter what the ship time was. People were buying that. Today, when you're at 70, 80% lower price, so I'm like, well, wait a minute. Something doesn't make sense there.
Yeah, no doubt. It's extremes, and that's what the both tips of volatility do, right? So, question for you guys from a logging standpoint: 2 months into this, when does this price start to drop log costs at places?
Depends on the market pricing for your logs. If it's in Canada, they have a different system than Western United States. Log prices are already retreating a little bit in the Western United States because mills are slowing down production.
Yeah.
There's always production creep in a good market. And production creep is defined by working a half a day on Saturday, working 2 10-hour shifts instead of 2 8-hour shifts. These are things that never get announced and never really get talked about, but they actually happen. When the price of lumber goes to $1,000, there isn't a sawmill in North America that won't try to figure out how to add a couple hours every week, right? And so now we're seeing the opposite. We're seeing the production decrease, and that's been going on since late July. It's continuing into August. It'll probably continue into September. There's plenty of logs around in the Northwest, and there has been lots of logs available the entire time. But are we selling logs at record high prices like we were a year ago? No. The price of logs is down about 20-25%. And it'll probably keep going down a little bit more as we go into the wintertime. So Canada, their log prices are set in Western Canada by quarterly pricing structure, based on the previous quarter's average sales prices. So sometime in, I guess, October, the price of logs will go down quite a bit. But in this quarter right now that we're currently in, prices of logs in Canada are much higher than they've ever been.
Yeah. So is there an incentive in Canada to run your log deck down right now and wait till the next quarter to buy them?
I mean, wouldn't you?
Yeah, heck yeah, I would. That's exactly what I would do. I'd stay out and wait to do that. I know that that's easier said than done, but that's what.
Well, I mean, it works out when you can't log because of forest fires.
Yeah, that's true. Hey, let's talk about one interesting thing that this basis. We're getting close to the expiration of this September contract. You've got that at what's the September contract at now on 2x4?
Roughly 500.
And what's the cash market right now?
Roughly 400.
So what's going to happen with that $100 basis?
Well, it looks like the mills are going to have to raise their prices, or the board's going to have to get sold down pretty hard.
Yeah, a smart guy.
It's
A
just
smart guy told
math.
me for a smart guy told me for the contract to work, it had to have convergence sometime in the expiration cycle, which is a month or sooner before expiration, right? So, to me, there's just an unbelievable amount of opportunity if you annualize that $100, $1,000. Why aren't people taking more advantage of that? Are they, or what are the reasons for that? Or maybe what's both your thoughts on how that basis is pretty wide? It has been. How do you take advantage of it?
I've been selling it all summer.
Well, you know what? Cheap and what's expensive. So,
yeah.
And I looked at this over the last week or so, and I think, I don't know if I talked to you or who, I went, this is just like, it's true. And sure enough, it is, because something that I bought a week ago and I sold futures against, I can buy even cheaper and sell at even higher. So the basis has gotten better over weeks, which is interesting. The shocking thing to me is why a Western loose mill would have any cash lumber for sale less than the futures price at this juncture, given that
they're
we're in the delivery. Given that we're in the delivery cycle.
Yeah.
What if you don't believe in?
If you're a Western mill and you're selling anything less than currently $90 FOB your mill, you're not doing the job for your shareholder.
What if you don't believe in futures deliveries as a function of your cash sales? There are some mills that refuse to do that.
I mean, all you're doing is cheating your shareholders out of opportunity.
I'm just saying, I don't know, $100 that don't do it.
There's 1,000. That wasn't when we were $1,500-$1,600. It seems like it's a lot of money when you're close to the cost of production.
Yeah, well, $100, $1,000 is always a lot of money in the lumber business. It's $10,000 per rail car. So you can do that math, can't you? I mean, I can. I think even a guy that doesn't trade spruce could figure that one out. So it's that simple. So $10,000 per rail car.
Russ just put up here, BC Interior Crown stumpage charges to increase by about $30 Canadian in $30 Canadian in Q3 and $10 Canadian in Q4.
That's per cubic meter. That's a lot.
Yeah.
On a Scribner scale, that's quite a bit of money.
Yeah. Yeah. So I guess my question is, when do these logs decrease based on the price per quarter? How much of a lag is there?
I don't know.
I guess, yeah. Yeah, everybody says there should be curtailments going forward. I mean, I don't know if I agree with that. Everybody says that and talks up how there should be curtailment. The mills are still, for the most part, have made so much money and are making money. Why would they curtail? The mills are in business to make lumber, not to not make lumber, and there's a big cost to shutting a mill down, especially when you got to meet contracts and all that. And it seems like we always talk about this when the price gets down here, the mills are going to curtail, but I don't see it in this market. I could be wrong. That's just me. They may, like you said, Matt, they may pull off some shifts, but there's such a big cost to shutting a mill down that I just.
It's very expensive.
Yeah.
It's very expensive. And you also have a problem with labor, which we've struggled with labor in both countries. Doesn't matter if it's Canada or the United States.
There's no mills are gonna like shut down completely, other than, like, to Matt's point, is they're gonna shut down for 2 weeks to do inventory, adjust their inventory. But I mean, also there's production creep on the way up, and then there's you lose production on the way down at some point, where you find where the most efficient place to make lumber is.
I always hear this when it gets down here. Mills always say we're gonna curtail. It's like I have a hard time Like somebody just said it, mills in BC are curtailing or have already. They're slightly curtailing some stuff, right? But are they shutting stuff down?
I mean,
there's Canfor has, West Fraser has. I mean, yeah, I'm sure. Yes, there are Western mills that have curtailed production and taken time off over the last 3 weeks, and they're going to continue to do that because they're running out of places to put their inventory.
It seems to me,
when you run out of storage space, either you find a new reload to start jamming lumber into that isn't sold, or you shut your mill down for a week or two.
Yeah,
and fill your floor stock.
Yeah, like Greg just said, these are the cosmetic shutdowns. Everybody's like, hey, yeah, we're going to shut some stuff down, but we're going to run our planers.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, come on. If you're going to if a shutdown to me is I just turn the key and I shut it down. Right. So, I mean, everybody made a lot of money on the way up here. There's plenty of money in the kitty. And like you said, there's labor issues. Mills are in business to make lumber, not to not make lumber. And I think this thing will all work itself out. What I've always noticed too is Econ 101. The lowest cost mills will run as hard as they can till they gain more market share too.
I don't know. Some of the largest lumber sawmills in North America decided that they did not want to sell certain segments of the market this year. So you could make the counter argument that they're actually looking to shrink their sales and more diversify themselves in different directions, right? So I don't know that that's 100% true anymore. You know, this idea that the big guys are just going to want to keep getting bigger. I think they might want to get bigger in different regions, maybe in Alberta, maybe in Eastern Canada, maybe away from Western Canada, maybe in the Southern Alpine, they want to get bigger. But on British Columbia, which the futures contract is based on, I don't think that's true anymore. I don't think people are trying to conquer the world with cheap blue lumber anymore. Those days are over. It's a different paradigm now.
Well, let's go. We've beaten that one to death here. So we talked housing. We talked Greg's poll he put out, basis and market. Let's just talk market to close it out. Matt, what do you think? I love the fact that you guys, if you got something sold with money in it, probably you got a lot less risk to the downside here. What's your thought to close things out, Matt? We're
back to lumber prices that have never bothered me. And I can run my business very simply with these parameters right now. And I run a pretty stress-free business. My biggest stress in the next 30 days is getting rid of the last of my high-priced inventory.
Yeah.
And managing my shorts, because I think there will be more curtailments, and I think the demand is slowly increasing. And I think we might be bottoming right now. For all I know, I might look back on this conversation in 3 weeks and go, yeah, I think that was the week. But maybe not either. I'm not sitting here gonna go write a big check and bet on this. I like the market now. It takes all the guesswork out of it for me. I don't have to freak out about buying $700, $800, $900 lumber. I'm back to buying $300, $400 lumber, which I'm good at. So I'll just go back to what I've always done.
Yeah,
which works.
Matt, I'll make it easy for you. Yes, the market is bottomed. It's bottomed. Okay. Now, I don't know how much of a bounce it's going to get. What I'm saying is, and I'll go back to what I said before. My thought is we had a period of unprecedented volatility over the last 18 months. And, normally the way lumber works is whatever was, the future ends up being different. And so I'm expecting a period of extended low volatility where prices just kind of lay here. Back to Ashley's point, if you lay here for the next 2-3 months, that gives the opportunity for all of the high price lumber to get flushed through the system. And then, and the inventories in the pipeline to get right sized. I mean, one of the things we didn't talk about today was inventories in the pipeline. There's reloads all across the country that are not accepting cars from people.
Are you serious? I thought that I never even asked about that. I heard that about docks the other day, how much wood there are sitting on docks, but there's always wood on docks, right? I guess relative, are reloads pretty full right now?
There's some reloads that are not accepting material from quote unquote new customers, or one of the things that on the docks, the shipping line, one of the shipping lines came out, and you need to get pre-approval to load your material in Germany to send to a U.S. port.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's
The port has
Greg.
to okay that they have space for you before they will load the material, because the shipping lines are tired of like getting someplace and saying no, we want to unload, and having to go someplace else.
I did not know that. I know there's some reloads I checked into for some MX users that have traditionally never used reloads before, and Atlanta and around some other places, and they're like, yeah, we're full with non-traditional people, and this has been regular. So we're moving some reloads up farther up north, right? Where a few people are looking for some things.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of lumber to support multifamily jobs that's in place, and that's the big chunk, because that's stuff that kind of goes and it sits, as opposed to Matt and I turn our inventory pretty well.
Yeah, that's true. That's good point. Good point. That's great feedback, Greg, on that. Matt, are you noticing anything with reloads? Saying there's
my reload in Texas is on the one I use, the one I've been using for the last 10 years. Is on permit only right now, but that's because the one of the tenants had their own reload shut down for track work done about 2 months ago, month and a half ago, and so they transferred a bunch of their inventory from that location up to my location, which they didn't expect it. It was just a whole bunch of inventory all of a sudden arriving all at once, and it's going to work its way through. But it's not because they took in a bunch of unsold rolling inventory from third parties that didn't have a place to go with it. It's because one of the major tenants had to ship their inventory locations to a different temporary.
I'm familiar with that. They had a rail down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
They had to redo their track. They're like 20 miles of track they had to redo. And so all their business had to go through a different reload for a period of time, let's say 90 days. And we're on the tail end of that. There's still reload. I'm being solicited right now in North Texas with new reloads that are opening. So, I mean, I think there's space in North Texas if somebody wants to look there, but I don't know about Atlanta.
Well, great show, guys. We're up against a half an hour. Greg, Judy, Neil, Russ, everybody that showed up, we really appreciate your feedback. Sometimes give us the feedback. Like Russ, I'm not exactly sure how that stumpage works. So your feedback is amazing, right? It's great. It helps everybody. So please give us that. Matt and Greg, thank you very much. We'll look forward to doing this next week. Matt Lehman and I will be on tomorrow at noon Central Time talking about the Lehman report. And boy, we've got some good pricing information we want to share with you tomorrow that we can only tell you if you show up. So, guys, I appreciate it. We'll look forward to seeing you.
All right. Take care. Thanks. Glad to have you back, Matt.
Yeah.
Thanks guys. Appreciate it. Good to see you.